I'm Georgette Pierre, and you are watching Black and Nuanced Podcast in HD, a visual extension of my podcast of the same name, where we seek to dispel the ideas that all Black people are monolithic. And I have DJ Domo.
Pew, 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 pew. We need air horn.
Pew, pew, pew. Of course. You're such a DJ. I love that.
With some effects or something.
I love that. So you and I actually met last year, thanks to Kim. We were at Power Rising Conference. And I remember I was supposed to be on the panel with you, and then their moderator dropped out. So I ended up moderating the panel. And I was like, look at all her fly. Domo had it going on from the shoes to the tats. I love these tats on your forearms.
Well, they covered today.
Yes, they got right. And then just even following everything that you were doing, like what's been up? What's been going on with you since then? Like, you know, you have Girlaaa World and you're just really holding it down for the DMV area.
I mean, it's hard to talk about what's going on in the middle of a pandemic because ain't shit going on. But prior to this, it was busy. I had built some really amazing relationships with BET, Team Epiphany. I started working with Viacom for a bit, so I did a show with them via MTV for Quibi. And I really just been running around chasing these gigs and just doing the best of what I got. I don't know. It was busy. It was busy. In the beginning of this, I wasn't mad about like being sat down for a little bit because I felt like I was always going.
Right.
But now it's kind of like, all right, sis, we need our checks. You know, the bills are still due on the 1st, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
what's going on with that? No, you know, I thought your story was actually interesting too, because you worked at the U.S. Department of Energy. So you started there and then you went into DJing. But for those that don't know your story, what was that journey like for you, even just kind of getting out of a space where you didn't want to be?
Well, Georgia, you know, that was a tricky thing for me. I think it took me a minute to figure out creatively what I wanted to do personally. I think that I had always leaned into creative things as my part-times, as my hustles, as my after work thing, as my whatever. But I had never been empowered or felt like I could ever do any of those things full time or like they would sustain me. So I was definitely part of that group of people who was bred to like chase something that felt stable versus like something that maybe fulfilled you, made you happy, whatever the case may have been. So I started working for the Department of Energy when I was like 19, 20. And I was, you know, I started as an administrative assistant and, you know, thank God for some people who really were my mentors in that space. I ended up really kind of hustling my way through that department as well and left as an environmental analyst working for the secretary before I left in the secretary's office, really more immediately to the deputy secretary. She was directly under him. But and the majority of my time there was under Obama's administration. But when that administration changed, it was abrupt.
Yeah.
It was not abrupt. It was abrasive. The changeover was abrasive. And people who had worked in government and in my agency, we're talking about 20 years, 30 years, they've seen many administrations change hand, whether it was a Republican administration, Democratic administration. They said they had never seen anything feel so aggressive of how they were just undoing work that we had spent the last 8 years building and all of our environmental efforts becoming a wash and just really dismantling programs and people's like life's work in a matter of like a year, you know?
So that was real life, because everyone kept saying like he felt like 45 just kept wanting to undo everything that had Obama's name on it, essentially.
It was real. It was very real. And I think for people who don't work in government, I mean, I think everyone in this country felt it. But for the people whose literal work is in government and it's every day, it really felt it was hitting us in another way. And at the time I was finishing my degree, I was going to school part-time for energy sustainability policy. So I felt strongly about the work we were doing, even though, if I'm going to be frank and honest, I felt like the work we were doing was important and that was valuable to me. And that's why I worked so hard in this space, but it was never something that I was like super personally passionate about.
Yeah.
So, for me, it was like multiple things that happened in like a span of a year, between like my agency getting flipped upside down and the work that I had been, really center focused on for so many years up until the point that I left, was getting washed and defunded and dismantled and erased, essentially. And then I had my relationship had broken down at the time. And that was like really traumatic. And then I had a family event take place that was also like really traumatic. So after like those three things, I kind of was like, you know what? Fuck this. Fuck all of this.
Yep.
I done survived all of this on top of many other things I've been through in my life that were even harder. And I'm just like, I'm not gonna waste no more time doing stuff that does not fulfill me. So I'm gonna holler at y'all. And I took like the next 6 to 9 months, I think, just devising a plan of how I was going to make my break, saved a whole bunch of money. And for my like nest egg, in case something didn't come together quick enough so that I could at least like pay my rent. And I just geared myself up to quit at a specific date and time, and I stuck to that. And then things just really started to fall into place, like more than I could have ever, planned it to, from the day that I left up until, this pandemic.
Right. I think it's so dope that mutual people that I know or I've worked with actually follow you, and we've never talked about you. And so it's like this whole full circle thing that people that in my circle that know who you are, all your dopeness. And so I think it's super, super fly. Like, I love it. Like, as soon as after I met you, you were bouncing, like you ended up at Coachella. Then you were, doing all these I was like, oh gosh. Oh, okay. Yes. I freaking love that. Were those easy things to fall into once you kind of felt like you got a foothold into this new creative passion of yours?
I mean, ain't none of this easy. But I think it's really just about like, I'm not trying to force myself anywhere that I ain't supposed to be. And I think that I really just do my best to lean into myself, and whoever like rocks with that, then it just kind of happens naturally. It's never something that I have to like, I definitely work hard and I hustle, and and social media is definitely a part of that, because I think that as I was building my DJ career up, I really made sure that I was intentional about the way I was using my social media and professional about the way I was doing it, so that, and I understood like what social media does. It's like, it's just a constant reminder of like what people have going on. And even though like it is so saturated with just like, a lot of bullshit, I think that in the beginning I was trying to use it as artistically as I could, which is showcasing like the things that I like to do, how I like them to look, how I like them to sound, how I like them to whatever, and just making it very clear that I'm moving with some intention, while at the same time like not always making it about myself. But it's not like it's not about me, but I also try to like bring people with me however I can, or bring something else with me that's equally valuable. That's why I rep my city so hard, and I don't know. So I think that how I get to these places is just like a natural progression of like whatever I'm doing, and people feeling like I fit into these places. Like I'm so thankful for BT. I really am. And I think that like people talk a lot of stuff about that TV platform or whatever they represent, but they've done a lot of work in just building something that is specifically for us. And I've never felt so at home in a place, you know what I'm saying? And every event they've ever had me part of or do, and I'll give big shout outs to Team Epiphany, Alex Hill, and also Miss Natasha, because she's in-house at BET. Both of those women, they have been integral in putting me in play with a lot of BET stuff. And it's always like, they just let me do me and it fits with BET, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that your work doesn't feel like work when you can just do what you do, and it doesn't feel painful. You know what I'm saying? It's like I think some people have to drag themselves to work, and they have to like, it's really stressful. And it's not to say that this doesn't get stressful, but it's just like it's a different type. You know, like it's something that's more serving me. It's the stress is like it's because it's a challenge. I got to figure out how to be in this space or present in this space, and not one where I feel like I can't be myself, or I have to change myself so much, or I have to speak differently or whatever. I did that already, you know? That's why I left the Department of Energy. I'm tired of, you know what I'm saying? I'm tired of like, I can't just be this, you know, or the questions about the tattoos, or if I wear braids to work and they just like, oh, you know, like it's always
right. There's always
I'm not trying to spend a lot of time doing that if I don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of like you putting on for the DMV, I saw the new DC campaign, and I just want to know a little bit more about it for those that weren't familiar. I knew there was a connection to, and please give me some background on it. I felt like it was about go-go, and I remember there was one point where there were at least like the gentrifiers or the white people that lived in the neighborhood that white people never wanted to live at initially were now trying to stop go-go music from being played. I think from like a music store or something that was happening in the area, and basically trying to mute what DC, like what's the core of DC. And so I saw you had gotten behind that. Were you was that a campaign that you initially started, or you knew the people that?
No, I didn't start none of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew the people and I got involved.
Yep.
However I could lend myself, that's just what I did.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I memean, Domo DC was a massive uprising last spring and summer. And I think you quoted it very well. And just that it was the center point of what kind of made everything take off was there is a Metro PCS store that sits on the corner of, I believe, Florida. And I think is that First Street? I'm forgetting the intersection. But it's right there by like the Howard Metro. It's a few blocks away from Howard University, Howard Hospital. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, it's like a center point in the city. It is the only place that also sells go-go CDs, and they have like a back side of their store for that. So the front side of their store is a Metro PCS store. Metro PCS is under T-Mobile. It's part of T-Mobile. And ultimately what happened was, there are a bunch of new condos and apartments that have changed the landscape of U Street and Florida Avenue in that area, in the Shaw area. And essentially, like, those people are a majority, like, you know, they're not from here and they're white. And they don't know what go-go music is. They don't have any respect for it. Yeah. They have no awareness for it. And they would complain about this Metro PCS store who had speakers on its front store, at its front door, that used to sit on the corner. Now, they had a permit to play this music. They were never playing it outside of business hours. It wasn't even as loud as it could really be. Because if it was me playing that music, it would have been 100 times louder than it was. It is very, like, calm. I'm sure if it was Billy Joel or, you know, something like that playing, it wouldn't be no issue. You'd be skipping down the sidewalk.
Of course.
Whatever. But because it's this music and you don't recognize it, it's a problem. So, these people complain. They complain to a degree where they complain to, like, T-Mobile's corporate. Yeah, like, they escalated it in a way, because I think they had gone into the store and complained, and the shop owner explained that, like, I have a permit, I can do this. And I think that he maybe even went as far as, like, maybe turning it down a little bit. But he has been there for years. I want to say, like, maybe 20 years. He's been there for years. And even, like, Black people who come to the city, like, for example, like, Black students that go to Howard that aren't from DC, it's almost like a an audible signal that you're close to school when you get off the subway, and you know that, like, yeah, I can hear Metro PCS, school's that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know which way to go, because the store falls between where the subway is and where the school is. So it was like people would start giving their own testimonies of what the store meant to them, even the ones who weren't native of the city, on top of like what it means to us, because there are no places in the city where you can go and buy go-go music from. So when that happened, there was a Twitter storm that kicked off, and then a few people who are like known activists in the city picked it up and got behind it, and then they established Domo DC. And then that set off a series of like impromptu street go-go's / protests that led well into the summer and created a bunch of other spin-off movements as well. And there's a bunch of clips where like you see the entire 14th and U filled up with thousands of people. They had to block off like the 3-mile radius, because we're talking about like 5,000 people, taking up a busy intersection that otherwise would have been, it is one of the busiest intersections in the city. So for that to have happened on multiple occasions was just like really impactful. It became like national. I want to say international, that could be a reach, but it became national news. It was being covered, especially after like the second and third ones. And people started to pay attention. So, it was, Domo DC is a big thing. I think that we're still trying to figure out how best to see like legal action follow that to protect it. They made go-go the official music of DC, but that's great, but it's not enough to me. It's kind of like a cute Band-Aid.
Right.
Because there's also like so many inner workings of like the dismantling of go-go music in the years prior that really took it out of the city so that people could disrespect it in this way. And that had in it, and there's so many layers to that I don't, we be talking about this for a while, Georgette. So don't like get me in my bag. But it's just gentrification and that uprising was really the response of Black people not being protected in DC and feeling that they've been pushed out of the city. And there's the thing that people misunderstand about gentrification. It's nothing wrong with change. We welcome change, but it is something wrong when it displaces people who are native to an area and help build it up. Black people built up the DC that you see today. In the 60s and 70s, white people did not want to live in the city.
Right.
You hear me? White people did not want to live in the city.
Can you hear her?
One more time for the people in the back. White people did not want to live in the city. So only Black people lived in the city. You hear me? So Black Broadway and like funk music, rhythm and blues, like that art culture really like, and Black people, made DC what it was, and then eventually, like, things built up around that and times change, and we talking about over like 20 years of shifts in that culture, and in the last, we want to say like 15 years as specific to go-go music and Black people, you just see neighborhoods slowly changing. Go-go music was outlawed in the city at a point. It was criminalized. Wow. It was just a lot.
A lot going on.
We ain't gonna stay there too much longer.
Well, to cap that part off, was there an end result for Metro PCS? Like, were they still able to play the music? Is that still
so it was reinstated. So the big uproar, like, allowed them to be reinstated and brought that back. And then
wait, it was taken away from them? I can't believe
because that's what happened. Like the Twitter thing that set it off was they were silenced because this person who responded corporately got them shut down for a couple of days.
Okay.
So when people walk by and were like, where's the music? Like the other, people who know.
Yeah.
Like Metro PCS is quiet right now. We need to know what's going on. So somebody went in the store and was like, what's going on? They were like, yeah, somebody complained. So this is what it is. And they tweeted it. So that tweet is what set off like everything in motion. And then there was a big petition to get them reinstated. I think even the CEO of T-Mobile ended up responding and apologizing of his own ignorance and whatever. And it's like, yeah, great. that ain't gonna fix the problem.
Right. Like you should have trusted the person that runs the store because they are on the ground. Like you are up here. You don't know what's going on down here. So
but even that expectation is with someone who understands that what he's doing is part of a culture that they have no concept of.
right.
You know what I'm saying? So
right.
it's like it was gonna take all of this. It's always gonna take all of this.
Yes.
We always gotta prove ourselves to these people that what we're doing is for a reason and rah rah rah.
Right.
You know, so
right. Instead of it being criminalized in all aspects. Yeah, that is definitely a road that we could talk about forever and ever. So on a lighter note, you are also a music curator. Apple Music rolled out regional playlists and you curate the new DMV.
Yes.
Fun fact if no one knew that. How did that connection happen?
I mean, that came full circle just as a result of like some early kind of hustling I was doing before I even had quit my job. I was definitely like making just trips to LA and New York to just connect with my friends who were in certain spaces and just taking like info meetings, not even with any specific intentions, just to like get to know folks and be like, I'm out here, I'm a DJ. And at the time I was tour managing. So I was like, I'm a tour manager and just really trying to like basically just casting my line, casting my net. And that was a year prior to me even getting this gig with Apple. So I had a couple of meetings at Apple, just meeting some of the Black women who work there. And because honestly, those are the majority of the people who have pulled me up.
Yeah.
It has always been a Black woman coming full circle to me. Like even this right here, like with Kimberly Seldon. Like Kimberly Seldon has ollied multiple things for me just on GP. You know what I'm saying?
She is
so this was another one of those instances where a friend of mine said, yes, you need to meet my friend at Apple. And I went and met her. She subsequently introduced me to a few of her colleagues there. And then, we all stayed in touch via our socials. And again, that's where social media like really can help you connect the dot or keep a dot in play, because then you can have like these visual reminders or cues of a person, even if you're not directly talking to them every day, like via text or personally or whatever. And there was another woman there named Malaysia. She's amazing, super smart woman. She had moved into a new role where she was overseeing this work, and she hit me up. I was literally on tour with Lil Skies. I was on a tour bus. And she texted me and she said, I have this thing going on, this project I'm working on. Can't totally tell you what it is yet, but I'm thinking I'm going to want to include you. And I said, okay, you just say the word. And I think she hit me up a few days later when it was confirmed and asked me to do the playlist. And I've been doing it ever since. And it's been about 2 years now. So, yeah, it's just moments like that come full circle, because it was almost a year prior to me meeting her.
Right.
That she even thought to hit me about this. And it's because we keep in touch via social. So yeah, that's how that came to pass.
I think people kind of forget the fact that like just because you meet someone and the opportunity doesn't fester or happen in that moment doesn't mean you should not keep in touch with these people. Because to your point, a lot of times those types of connections do happen a year or 2 years later. Like you have to be patient with it. And so that's, I love that. Okay. So before we get into this last segment, Femme Forward held it down or sponsored the Versus Series with Jill Scott and Erykah Badu. And then D Nice did Club Quarantine. And then he did a Femme Forward with, it was about 5 or 6 of y'all?
I think so.
Yes. Okay. So that's, I mean, like that recently happened. How long were y'all sets? Like what, I mean, I'm sure that was kind of like a highlight in your career, right? I mean, I'm sure you have multiple highlights, but what did that feel like to just be able to DJ and rep out of the women that he chose to be on his live doing DJ sets, holding it down for the ladies?
It was great. I mean, I met D Nice before. I met him more formally and was able to have more conversation with him in Sundance, but I met him before that during CBC because we were both DJing a gig. And no, I had come from a gig, I think, and then came to his. But I met him there first, actually, was I think the year prior. And he's always just been great energy. He's very he just kind of beams. He's got a, and I think that he just really loves music. And I think that he appreciates anybody who appreciates it in the same way. And I think that he has no problem lending himself or what he knows, because after my set in Sundance, like he didn't have any problem just like one, like bigging me up, but then also just being like, here's some stuff to work on. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, he was like, you can be so great. He was like, and you should definitely like take these things and work on them a little bit better. It'll be amazing. And I appreciate that from someone like him, because he's been doing this. You know what I'm saying? And I think that some people like to try to keep their cards close to their chest unnecessarily, because we're all different in this. We bring something different. My energy is not the same. And it's like that's what makes you valuable. So somebody sharing a tip or tool or education with me is always like, I appreciate it and it's valuable to me, because I feel the same way. Like, I don't mind sharing anything that I know with someone who, could benefit from it in some type of way, because what you have to bring is valuable too and different than mine. So there's no, like, he's amazing. He's great. He's been a great mentor. He's been a great supporter and advocate.
That's awesome. I saw that and I was just like, come on. And I mean, a few of us knew about D Nice, but obviously like the rest of the world that may not have known about him was introduced.
Yeah, he's household name at this point.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
very well deserved. Like, very well deserved.
I agree. When MTV picked him up,
like his music history, like, he's been toing this, and I think he took time off in between, and he's also like an established photographer. But then he stepped back into DJing like in a real way, and I think people felt like, oh, well, like, where he come from, and I was just like, oh, y'all tripping. He sat down for a little while because he chose to.
Right.
Like, don't get it twisted. Like, he was like whole DJ. Like, he's been in this game like since the 80s, like since he was a kid. Like,
don't get the shit twisted. Yeah. No, I love that. Okay, so getting into this last segment called All of the Things, it's really lighthearted. What's a fun fact that we don't know about you, Domo? I mean, we see your social media, but like, what is it that's not so obvious to the rest of the world? Look at her face.
Girl, I don't know. I don't know, girl. I'm a hot mess most of the time. And a hot mess. I don't know. When I was like 22, I used to redesign shoes. That's a fun fact. There you go. I made a pair for Maya once. She wore in a photo shoot.
Did she? Like the singer Maya?
Yeah, the singer Maya.
Because she's from Maryland, right?
She's from Maryland.
Yes.
I love honey. She a PG County honey. And I can low key sew my ass off. I'll be making a lot of money. Oh yeah,
because you were talking about some things. Like, I saw some of your outfits for some of the things that you were doing, and you said you had to put something together last minute, or something happened, like a snafu happened last minute, and you
when I was in Miami for Lena Wave's 20s showing. This was during Basel.
Mm-hmm.
My skirt ripped it had like a tear. It was a cheap ass skirt anyway.
But it's fine.
It was a cheap ass skirt. So I was just like, you know what? I got a little bit of time. So I just cut the bottom of it because it was kind of long. It was like one of those like knee length, like silky kind of skirts.
Yeah. So
I was like, well, it's finna be a mini. So I cut it. Hemmed it, and then took the piece that I cut off and just turned it into like a little drapery thing across the front.
Yeah.
And she was cute. So I was just like, you know what? We finna go off with this, because what else I'm gonna do? I was in the car, and because again, this is BET, just taking care of your girl. Because that particular weekend, I was back-to-back gigging, and I was super stressed out. I had come from another city. I can't remember where I was coming from. So I wasn't coming from home. That's why I didn't have time to get things. So BET, man, they took care of me this weekend because they had a car service, which is not always the case. But when they can do it, they do it. They had a car service. So I was thanking God for that, because I was in the back of that car sewing sis together. Pinning it together. I was like, oh Lord, I ain't never been so thankful to know how to sew, because this is getting me together.
Yes.
And I was all right.
Yes. I mean, but the thing is, like, your outfits are so fly. One of my favorite outfits, I think, was it Broccoli Fest? You had the pink.
About that ghetto Power Ranger. I regret that outfit.
Do you? You talking about the pink?
Yeah.
That was, oh my gosh, that was one of the cutest. I was like that. I was like,
the ghetto Power Ranger.
Really?
I was that in the moment, but that was another day. where I didn't know what the hell I was going to wear because that skirt was knee-length too. I had cut that thing. Damn, I love cutting the skirt.
Domo, that shit came together though. I was like,
yeah, Adidas need to cut me a check.
Right, because was the whole outfit Adidas or it was just the top?
The whole thing, because you can't cross. So the skirt was Adidas, the top, the long sleeve thing I had on was Adidas, and then I had to wear Adidas shoes because what you gonna do? Like you can't mix up the brands. That's disrespectful. Listen. I
remember hearing Kenya Bear say on Black as Fuck, he was like, "You look like a terrorist," because he had Adidas top, Nike bottoms. The shit was so funny. I was like, "Can you not
do it? You can't do it. I don't need nobody pulling up on me, firing my ass up." That happened to me one time. My friend Adrian, he said, "I wish you would mix brands. I'll fly all the way from LA just to cook your ass."
The pressure.
Stop playing. And I think, and the one time, like, I think I posted something and I wasn't dressed for nothing. It was like somebody took a picture of me off guard and the picture was cute and I posted it. And he said, "Do you have on an Adidas top with Nikes on? I'll fight you. Don't you never do it again." and he wasn't lying because I knew that. But I also was just like, I okay. Damn.
Right. Like you were chilling. You were, chilling. How can the lovely people find you, Domo, online?
I am at DJ Domo, Domo, on Instagram and Twitter.
Hey, Domo, I appreciate you so much. Oh, and then Girlaaa World is another project of yours. How can they find that and learn more about that?
So Girlaaa is on Instagram. They are at Girlaaa with 3 A's .world, and that's my women-centric group of my gang. That's my gang whole time. It's a group of DJs, graphic designers, illustrators, musicians. It's just a mixed bag of women. We work together to create the most innovative events that intersect music and art. That's like our whole MO. So, and we support cool stuff.
Yeah.
Cool stuff, Black stuff, women's stuff. That's our whole that's where we sit.
Yep. I love that because shout out to you, Sunny, and even Dominique the Diva, because we all sat on a panel last year.
Yes.
When you did Women in Radio. And I was just like, oh, yes.
Because it just doesn't happen enough. I think I just be trying to set us up for success or just putting us in places to meet each other or to shine or however we can extend ourselves. And I think that Girlaaa is just that. It's just meant to do that. It's just to bridge the gap between us so we can work together and so people understand that is what we're doing. Like we are working together. We are uplifting each other. We are, doing substantive things and that we're going to help each other succeed.
Yeah, you have a strong, dope ass team, and I love them. They're super dope. Like they are 1,000% down and rep Girlaaa to the death of them. So that's what's up. I love it.
Gang whole time.
Gang. Thank you, boo.